Just like, you know what, I'm going to put out a mountain of content, and most of it will do just okay. A little bit of it will do really well and hopefully attract attention to the other content. Look, I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket and just work relentlessly at this until it is producing the passive income that I want.
Hi guys, today we're going to be going into a guy named Dave. Unbelievable YouTuber. He's got a YouTube channel called Professor Dave Explains, where he goes into explaining chemistry, biology, mathematics, now economics, and all these different subjects that you learn in school. So it's really interesting because what he did extremely well was chose a channel that he could make evergreen content that people are going to have to continually learn year after year. Dave has 1.2 million subscribers. He also talks about the different ways that he's been able to create engagement, positive and negative, on his channel. So if you go and check out his channel, you'll see that he has a bunch of debunking videos where he kind of mixes entertainment as well as education into one video. And these have done extremely well, with his biggest debunk video getting 4 million views. It's about flat earth, and the section in this podcast is hilarious. So we go into the life story of how Dave got started as a musician in a band, traveling in the back of a van, all the way to making full-time living from YouTube. So it's a great production process. He's pumping out 5 videos a week, so massive amount of content, over 1,000 videos. So he talks about the learnings from all those 1,000 videos that he's put out. You're going to learn so much from this episode. I can't wait to see you in there. So Dave, thank you so much for joining. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So really interested to learn how you sort of got started and what your background story is before you started YouTube. Like, what led you to starting a channel, choosing the topic you chose, and diving into that area?
Sure. Yeah, it's a little bit of a convoluted story, but I'll try to keep it condensed. So I've always been kind of science oriented. I enjoyed science growing up, and then in college I chose to major in chemistry. And after college, I was very interested in playing music. I'm a musician, still trying to make it with music, but really just the way I was able to support myself in all this time since college was usually tutoring or teaching science. I eventually got a job teaching organic chemistry at a trade university. So that's what I was doing from about 2010 to 2013, and then I was in this touring band, and we were in the van one day, and we were saying, you know, it's great that the tours pay for themselves, but we weren't really taking home income. We weren't figuring out how to pay rent, and you can't have a job at home when you're on the road a lot. So we were just talking about passive income. We all need some idea for a source of passive income, and so my idea was a YouTube channel. I decided, well, you know, I had only 1 year prior stopped that job teaching OChem, so I had these organic chemistry lectures fresh in my mind. So I decided, all right, I'm going to record them to camera with a whiteboard. You know, do all of my OChem lectures and put those on YouTube and see what happens, and maybe I'll make some money that way. And they were received very well, and so I was encouraged to do more. So I did general chemistry, but I used a green screen and did some animations using Adobe After Effects, and just sort of kept upping the production value, and those did well. And so then I did biochemistry, and then I did biology and math and physics, and just haven't looked back. So that band kind of didn't work out, but luckily this was on the upswing. So I just thought, look, I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket and just work relentlessly at this until it is producing the passive income that I want. And I'm happy to say about 5 years later, it is. So it worked.
Nice. So in terms of your timeline, you know, how long did it take you to start seeing some traction? Like, how many videos, or how long did it take you to kind of like start realizing that YouTube was actually a channel that you could generate revenue from?
Yeah, I mean, the shortest answer would be about a year and a half. But I mean, I saw some traction immediately. There were a lot of students that were, because at the time, this was 2015, there was still not a tremendous amount of really good organic chemistry tutorial content. So people were saying, "Oh, this is great. Do more." So I was encouraged right away, right from the start, which is something that I had never experienced with my artistic endeavors. Usually, you put music on the internet, nobody cares. It's just so hard to get people to care about your art. But with science, if you put out a tutorial that explains to the student better, how to pass, how to understand this concept and do well on their test better than the other content, they'll all watch that all over the world. So that was great. And so that was January 2015. I published all that content. Around halfway through 2016 was when I started thinking, all right, maybe this is really going to go all the way. So, I mean, to be honest, I just kind of went on socialblade.com because I was like, all right, what are YouTubers making? I had no idea. I knew that I wasn't at that time, making, $1 a day or something like that. But, a couple bucks a day maybe. But I looked on there and I was shocked. I was floored. I could not believe how much top YouTubers were making. So I just thought, that's it. That's all I needed. Like, I'm just going to work on this until, I'm not making like 8 figures like these people, but I certainly should be able to make a living off of this. And now I do. So, yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Especially because you chose, one of the less popular topics to narrow in on, because like so many times people try and create YouTube channels around like, pranks or dating or fitness or whatever it may be. And the competition is just crazy high.
Right.
Whereas when you choose a topic like this, which is actually probably way more valuable of a skill set and much more valuable content, there's less people covering that. Do you think that kind of had a success, or where do you think the crossover between education and then entertainment come for you?
Right. It's a very good question, because you're right that there are these other genres that are more popular, that people love to watch these viral videos on YouTube, and they can get a lot of hits. But then the problem is, everybody's doing it, and like, how do you set yourself apart? Because they're not very substantive. So everyone's kind of doing the same thing. So you're really just submitting yourself to the whim of the algorithm. You know what I mean? You're just like, is this one going to get suggested to everybody, or is it not? And then no one's going to see it. And so that's to me just like my art, where I can put my art up on the internet and nobody finds it, nobody cares, but with science, and in particular, kind of the academically, the curriculum aligned content that I'm doing that's specifically for students, I have there's a built-in metric where if I explain it better, if it's clearer, if it's easier to understand, they will watch it more than others, right? It's not so much just taste or like, ooh, I like this. It's like, no, this is better content. And so that's why, I've worked very hard to produce as much content as possible, a large volume of content, but also try to really hone the aesthetic and really make it absolutely precise and succinct and clear, and so that students know to come to me to learn whatever it is that they're struggling with in school. And so that's been how I've accumulated all this momentum, just because unlike these other genres, there's a reason why someone would watch one video, an actual objective motivation for watching my content over another channel.
Yeah.
So
No, it's really interesting. And then what percentage, like this is super vague, I'm sure, but do you know sort of what percentage of your subscribers or followers are watching you for like the actual benefit of learning what they can't learn in class?
Yeah, the majority. I mean, it's certainly at least 90%, maybe 95% are, it's predominantly students that are studying math or chemistry or physics or whatever it is, and they're using my tutorials to supplement their lectures. And their teacher explains it maybe not that well or pretty well, but then they forgot or whatever, and then they go home and okay, here's a nice little 8-minute video, and now the concept is nice and clear. So I do have other content, the debunking content that you were mentioning, and so those can be popular. Some of them are popular, but obviously the majority, I have over 1,000 videos, and so the overwhelming majority are just academic tutorials. So that's most of what people are watching. But I do like kind of the more entertaining content as well. So
yeah, well, I think I was talking to another YouTuber a few weeks back about how important it is to have controversy on your channel, or how important it is to kind of have a consistent message and belief behind your channel. So I think you do really well. But one question I wanted to ask you is what sort of tips can you give other YouTubers about creating interesting, engaging content on topics that maybe are a little bit more complex, or maybe not as kind of interesting as the viral stuff?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I would not say that the majority of my content is very interesting. I mean, I think if no one is going to watch a calculus tutorial for fun. I mean, maybe you would. I don't know. I mean, I think I can make it as interesting and engaging as possible, but it's certainly not, I mean, I can't even think of an example, but it's not. It's the polar opposite of clickbait. You're not like, oh, I'm dying to know what's in this video. No, the title tells you, how to differentiate logarithmic functions. Why would you click? So I think for what I do, it's not so much how to make it interesting. It's more just how do I if someone's clicking on my tutorial, they need to know what's in that. They clicked on it because they need to know that for class. So how do I deliver the comprehension they're seeking without, I want to take away all the fluff. I want to give you exactly just what you need with very clear visuals, and I want to deliver it, succinctly, and I want to give you the keywords, and I want to highlight them, and they want to appear. I want to make them appear when the visual appears. It's a very, a precise formula. And if the student comes away from that going, wow, that it's physically impossible for that to be any clearer than it just was. That's what I'm going for. So, I mean, unfortunately, that only applies to this particular kind of content. I mean, I guess I can speak to that briefly with my debunking content. Again, with that, I do try to be very clear and very thorough. But with those, I actually inject some humor and stuff like that. So that's kind of my angle. I try to be a little funny and a little salty, and people seem to kind of like that. So,
yeah, I love the sarcasm in them. They're absolutely hilarious. And so it's interesting that you can kind of have a formula for each type of piece of content that you create. And yeah, in terms of how do you go about attracting new subscribers to your channel? So, it's obviously very niche in terms of the content that you develop, but there's 1.2 million people there subscribed. So how have you sort of built that following over time?
I'm going to be honest, I did nothing. I wish I had this really elaborate, formula to share. No, I did flirt for a little while with Google AdWords campaigns and stuff like that, and I just found that the return was nowhere near worth it, and I was getting organic growth. So it's pretty much all organic growth. I will say that my views are 90% are 90% non-subscribers. So, I mean, really, this is a little bit more unique to an educational channel where somebody's like, I need to understand such and such topic, and they put it in the search bar, and luckily, a lot of my stuff is favored pretty well by the algorithm, so I'm on the first, maybe 5 search results, and they like the thumbnail, they click it. And so that's really all it is. It's really a lot of the subscribers. I don't command, it's a little misleading. Some people want to sponsor my content, and they're like, oh, it's this great, you have over 1 million subscribers, so 1 million people are going to see it. No, they're not. Look at my average view counts. A lot of my videos, when I put them out, I get a few thousand views because it's a niche tutorial. So it's really just the subscribers are students who are like, look, you saved me a lot of money in tutoring. The least I can do is click the subscribe button, and that's my thank you to you. So, but I am amassing a little bit more of a loyal following with the debunks. People do get excited for those and have requests, and they want to say, oh, you took down so and so. I hate that ridiculous person, and so they get very excited about those. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see the polarizing effect of those types of debunking videos. But what's your process of coming up with a topic, creating the content, doing the research? What's the process you do, and how long does it usually take to produce, say, one of your average videos?
So with the academic stuff, it's very easy to think of what to do because I just pick academic subjects. So like when I decided to do math, I just thought, okay, we're going to do math. So I'm going to start with elementary school algebra and go all the way up to like third year undergrad differential equations or whatever it is. And so preparing the content, I mean, it's a little bit laborious, but I certainly don't have to think of any ideas because it's 100. I made 165 math tutorials.
It's in a textbook.
Yeah, it's in a textbook. I have 3 textbooks, and I just kind of reference them all, and I hone my scripts, and I know what I want to say. Then eventually I tap out. Like with math, halfway through linear algebra, I was like, you know what, I can't handle this anymore, so I hired somebody. And actually at this point, a good portion, more than half of my writing is outsourced to experts because I know a lot about chemistry and some things about physics and biochemistry and biology and math and astronomy, but that's about it. So now that I'm moving into like immunology and like I'm even doing non-science topics like economics or all these other things where some of them I know literally 0 things about. So I just kind of hire somebody who knows how to explain that stuff. They write the scripts. I kind of edit them to fit my voice and then go ahead and do the post-production. So that's for the academic stuff. For the debunks, I kind of just base it on either something that I've seen over and over again that really bothers me, because I'm very passionate about public science literacy and exposing con men, exposing misinformation, diffusing, kind of just taking the air out of some of these fads online. So stuff that I've seen a lot, or honestly, sometimes just there will be somebody spams me a link over and over again. Hundreds of people are like, "But did you see this? But did you see this?" And I first time I look and I'm like, all right, that's ridiculous. Yeah, and after 200 times, I'm like, all right, everybody's linking me to this moron. I got to debunk this idiot. So I've done that multiple times.
So your audience is actually helping you.
Yeah, and it's not even my audience. Sometimes it's people who are defending the thing I'm debunking. Like, I did, a bunch on this like electric universe fad, which is just pure pseudoscience. And everyone's like, oh, but you don't see, what about this guy? You didn't debunk this, he's amazing. I'm like, no, that guy's a moron. Like, okay, I'll do a video to show you why he doesn't know what he's talking about. But so yeah, a lot of them come up that way where, I'm in a feud right now with a creationist chemist. And again, it was just because people kept linking me to some videos he'd made, ranting like a preacher. And so I'm like, all right, I got to take this guy down a notch now.
Got to retaliate to this. But that's interesting because I think, in most industries, people could create those feuds or those debunks no matter which niche they're in, really, because everybody's got an opinion somewhere. So, just find the opinions you disagree with or agree with, and make rebuttal content or make interesting content that either adds or takes away from what they're kind of educating in.
Yeah, it's a common formula.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question I had was, with your process of outsourcing the writing and everything, how did you find those people? Because, I know a lot of content creators, they don't necessarily want to hand over their baby essentially. Yeah. And how do you outsource that, but then still keep it your channel? Like, what's the balance there?
So it's much easier to outsource the writing than anything else because once I get the scripts, I can always still tweak them, and I do, to just kind of make them fit my voice a little more precisely. It's really more the post-production that is sort of like a signature style. So I still do all of the post-production. But in terms of finding the writers, I'm very fortunate to I have access to a couple of Slack groups, 2 different Slack groups for science communicators. One of them is more edutubers, we call ourselves, so educational YouTubers. We all have a Slack and we all talk to each other. And then I'm part of another one, which is mainly scientists who are looking to get into science communication. So that one's really useful. Every time somebody joins that Slack and introduces themselves and like, hey, I'm a third-year PhD student studying ecology, blah, blah, blah. I'll hit them up and go, hey, want to write some scripts for me? And, 1 in 4 get back to me with some interest, something like that. I also cold contact people on LinkedIn. So that's another way that I do it. But you do have to kind of like people aren't knocking down my door. Even though the channel's fairly large at this point, but I still have to I hunt for my writers. And when I find a good one, I make sure.
And then also got a vet.
That they're happy. Yeah, I mean, although to be honest, it would be very shocking if really any graduate student, and especially some or even more so for a PhD holder in a particular field, there's almost no way that they're not going to be able to explain the basic concepts in their field, because my content is largely early undergraduate. So if I hire an ecologist, which I have, who's going to write me Ecology 101, I mean, this is very, very basic content. So the question is more if they're really good writers and if they can organize the content very well, which I can usually tell after a sample or two, but that they would not be able to explain it, it's unthinkable. If you are even a first or second year PhD candidate, you're going to be able to explain. Yeah, I mean, you can do they probably even TA 101 classes. So they have the knowledge almost without fail. I mean, it would be unthinkable that they didn't. So that's honestly the easy part, and so I just pay them a rate per page, and I try to be flexible with the timeline, and I take the scripts as they come, and then I just keep churning out the content relentlessly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's an interesting thing, and based off that amount of content you're producing, can you kind of pinpoint some mistakes you made along the way of I tried that and that really didn't work? Or things that worked really, really well, and you tried it and it was wow, that video did so well?
In a very general way, I'd say the main mistake that I made early on is that I didn't kind of fact check enough. The very first content I did, the first animated content I did, the general chemistry content, I'm embarrassed at this point, because even though I teach Gen Chem concepts pretty well, I wrote the scripts in the van while we were on tour off the top of my head. I literally didn't even reference a single textbook. I was just oh yeah, I've taught that before. And then animated them. I didn't have anyone look at the scripts. I didn't have anyone look at the finished videos, and there are errors. I'm way more than I'd like. So that's embarrassing. Okay. Now, the further along I get, now, obviously, I have somebody else with a PhD or getting a PhD writing the script, and then I have someone else in that field also look at them and give me notes. And so I do a lot more in the way of okay, is this correct? Is everything good? Will you tell me? You tell me. I try to get a lot of feedback there. So that's probably the main thing. In terms of what does well and what doesn't well, honestly, it's a crapshoot. Sometimes I think, oh, this topic is going to be very interesting to people, or a lot of students really need these tutorials. And sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't. It's also very confusing when I put out 35 calculus tutorials, and one of them or two of them get that top search result for the keyword, and they get 10 to 20 to 30 times more views than the other tutorial. So it's just a lot of it is algorithm, and so it's hard to say. Yeah, and so my strategy is just what, I'm going to put out a mountain of content, and most of it will do just okay. A little bit of it will do really well and hopefully attract attention to the other content. And then now at this point, I just have this enormous database of tutorials. And so I have a little bit of a reputation. If people know that I have physics tutorial, they use me for chemistry, and then they see, oh, he has physics tutorials. And then, oh, next year, wow, now this year I'm in physics. So I'll go back to Dave for physics. So if I just kind of want to have this database where or what are you trying to learn? It doesn't matter. Go to Professor Dave Explains. He'll explain it as clearly as possible, and it'll be good for school. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting that you're kind of expanding on your topics and niches so that you can follow someone from literally, early on in their education to super far and developed into their PhD, really.
Absolutely. Ninth grade to at least through undergrad. Yeah, there's stuff there. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. And then on that note on, what worked and what didn't, is there anything, if you were to do this all again, start a new channel with your sort of educational topics, is there anything you would do differently? Anything you'd want to change in the way that you did things?
I mean, again, I would just be so much more careful and so much more deliberate and like double and triple check everything. I also would have just worked harder sooner because I delayed it for a little bit. I was kind of just focusing on other things and then, not really wanting to like take a deep dive into Adobe After Effects and like figure it out properly. And so it's just, we have all of these challenges, all of these hurdles, and it's a pain. It's a pain to learn a new kind of software. It's a pain to like do all of these tasks that you must do if you're going to be an entrepreneur in the digital space. And you just got to buckle down and do them. And the sooner you're willing to just take the time, it's like, okay, I got to learn this software. Sit down and learn it. Sit down for 8 hours today. Do it again tomorrow. A week later, you'll be just do it. You just have to do it. And it's hard to find the discipline sometimes, but as soon as you can get into that kind of flow, it's just gonna, you'll get there sooner, and then you'll be happier sooner. So, but
yeah. Well, the first steps are always the hardest, aren't they? And then once you get that system, once you get the process, it gets a little bit easier. But it's like also having faith that, what you're putting all this work into will actually pay off. You're one of the lucky few that it actually did pay off, and you were able to turn it into a career, really. Yeah. Whereas I think there's a lot of YouTubers that will, stick at it, and then, at the end of a year, they'll be like, still haven't made $100. So that's it.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, that's why, the educational space is so great for that in the sense that it's all evergreen content. So it's harder. Like I know people who do like, movie reviews or like stuff that's like current with like what's on TV right now or something like that. And like, if you hit really big with that, like I have a buddy who kills it on that and just makes unbelievable amount of money doing that. But if you don't, a month later it's already old news. So I knew I was encouraged from the beginning with this because I knew that it was all the epitome of evergreen content, because every single year there's millions of new people who need to learn that subject. So I allowed myself to not get that stressed out at the beginning, because I knew like, okay, it's going to be a slow build, but it will do that. So yeah. But even still, it's tough.
And then going into that, you started out as a YouTube channel. How are you expanding past the YouTube channel? I know you have a book, and how else are you taking that kind of traction you got on YouTube and expanding that in terms of revenue and growth in your business, really?
Yeah, so I'm definitely interested in being as much of a public figure as possible. So I had already started doing talks and hosting things, and so I'm interested in doing that quite a bit more. I'm interested in doing television. A publisher reached out and I wrote a book that actually just came out about a week ago. It's called "Is This Wi-Fi Organic? A Guide to Spotting Misleading Science Online." So it's very in line with what I do on my channel.
Love the title.
Thank you. Yeah, so yeah. I mean, in terms of revenue, I think public speaking is definitely the primary thread that I'm looking at there. But also with the channel, because the formula is really dialed down, and now the cash inflow is such that I can start to give these tasks out. I'm hoping to hire people to handle the post-production slowly but surely, so that I can step away from that as well. Then I'll have a situation where I'm really just narrating, and I'm approving scripts, narrating them, and approving animations, and that will cut my time, my workflow down to 10-20% of what it is now, and then I can really focus on other things. And right this year, next year is kind of when I'm going to be able to do that. So very exciting. I'm so tired of 70-hour weeks in front of my computer. So.
Well, I was just about to ask that. How long does it take you to produce a video when you first started, and how long does it take now? What's the input to each one of these videos? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to estimate by video just because there's so much variance. The videos can be anywhere from 3 minutes to 50 minutes or something. So, but I suppose
whatever the average is. I mean, some of the content, like my Italian tutorials that are really just like image text, I could knock those out 5 in a day. Some videos take me almost a week because they're very long. Some of the debunking ones have a lot more going on. But whatever you would call the average, I'm at least twice as fast now, maybe 3 times as fast as I was even just like maybe 4 years ago. So I've definitely streamlined it. I mean, you get it down. You get it down not only just, I mean, first of all, you have confidence in the decisions you make. So once you've produced enough content that works, you're able to look at, what's in front of you and go, well, this has always worked in the past. I trust my instincts. I know how to do this. So that kind of stuff. And then even just like on After Effects or on Premiere, I have like all the keyboard shortcuts down, and it becomes an extension of your hands. And so I edit way faster than I used to. All of that stuff. It's just very slow, very incremental. You just have to be astoundingly patient with yourself and with YouTube and with the process. But if you work, I mean, that's all. I mean, I have my discipline to thank for it. I have just the amount of time I put into this and have for the past 5 years. That's the reason. That's the reason that the channel is successful. So I do explain things well, but it's because I just hammered this thing out. I grinded it out.
So consistency.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. When I tell people about my output, my upload schedule, like to other edutubers, they're just like, "What are you talking about? Like, how do you put out this much content?" I was doing 5 a week, and I pulled back to 3 a week, but most people are doing 1 every bi-monthly or something like that. So it's a lot of content.
Yeah. Wow, that's a huge amount. Yeah. Okay, so that's a lot of work then, producing 3 to 5 videos a week, especially when it's taking maybe like a 10-minute video on average is taking like 10, 20 hours?
Some are taking that long, some are taking quite a bit less. It depends on what subject. Like, it depends if the graphics require like motion and like something a little bit more complex. Again, a lot of them are just image text. Some of them have no motion, but there's like a lot of equations and a lot of fine details. So it really does vary tremendously. I mean, I'd say the shortest I could ever finish animating a video would be like 3 hours. And again, the longest would be like 3 to 4 days sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
and that's even just the animation. That's not even planning it, filming it, doing all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the debunks take a lot on the pre-production because I have to comb through all of their videos and find all the things they say that are wrong. And so those take a long time. For the academic tutorials, not as much. Sometimes if it's just a one-page script, I can knock out 20 episodes in a couple of days, 3 days or something like that. Because I have the textbook, I'm working through it, and so that's not as hard. But yeah.
Okay. So I can't ignore this one. All right, the debunking video, 4 million views. Obviously, super interesting topic. How do you deal with the haters on these sorts of videos? Like, I know it kind of helps with the engagement and everything, but how do you sort of create that such controversial content, and then how do you deal with any backlash and that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Oh, I would shudder to think that Flat Earth is controversial. It's not to anyone with more than 3 brain cells. But no, obviously it's a good question because I wasn't used to it, and Flat Earth is what brought me into the debunking realm. And so prior to that, I would have a negative comment very rarely, once a month at most. Then now after Flat Earth and creationism and electric universe and anti-vax and all of these things, it's just all day, every day. Trolls, I mean, legitimate trolls that are not even, spam, they're spam accounts and stuff. And then people who are misinformed. And then like the people who I debunked using their sock accounts to pretend that there's something to talk about. I mean, it's insane, the culture. And so block liberally. I block very liberally because I just don't want to deal with it. I'm not going to get into a back and forth that lasts a week with 100 different people simultaneously. I'm just not going to deal with it. This channel is my space. And if I want to block, or if I want to delete spam comments, or if I want to do any of that stuff, that's my choice, and I do that. And I don't care what people say about that. It's like my front lawn. You know what I mean? If you're going to come and try to defecate on my front lawn, like, no, I'm not going to stand for that. Yeah, I'm going to kick you out, and I'm going to clean it up, and I want my lawn looking nice. And so I don't care if people are like, oh, he censors, or whatever. I don't care. It's my life. I'm not going to allow my life to turn into just exclusively monitoring and dealing with these people and stuff.
Replying to comments, yeah.
Yeah, and I reply to comments way more than other YouTubers. And some people have been like, wow, like, why do you do that? Maybe you shouldn't do that. And maybe I shouldn't, but it's also like, if the debunk...
Entertaining.
Well, it's entertaining. I mean, first of all, yes, it does drive up, it's good for the algorithm, right? The more comments and the more common threads and very long comment threads. So that's just the baseline. Like, if I do that, the video will do better. But also, if I have somebody, forget the bots, forget the sock accounts. If I have somebody who's genuinely confused and pushing back, why not engage them? And if they're not insulting, I'm not insulting. And I try to explain something to them. If they are insulting, I'm not a saint. I'm insulting too. And I try to, look, you're wrong. Here's why. This is not a matter of opinion. These are scientific facts. And so I do get into the trenches, and maybe that works a little bit, maybe it doesn't work at all, I'm not sure, but we do have a very big problem on our hands with misinformation and people not trusting expertise anymore, and I don't know what the solution is, but engaging people one-on-one in the comment section of my videos, it's something. It's something.
Baby steps.
I'm doing what I can do. I can't change everyone's mind magically, so, this is the best I can do.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then when you come to like blocking, is that just like choosing certain keywords or something, or just blocking users? How do you sort of manage that?
I block users. I actually just yesterday learned that you could block keywords, and so I started doing that because there's this one thing, I don't get what they're doing, but they keep saying, like, for HPV treatment, contact Dr. blah blah blah, herbalism, and they keep, it's bots, but they keep using different names, and so when they use a new name, I take the name and I block that, and so then a week later they got a new name that they're trying, but it's at least if I can do that, because it's relentless. I get a dozen per day, easily, of those. But it's mainly users. I can tell immediately when it's a sock account because it was created like that day or the day before. Yeah. It's clearly like there's a few con men that I've debunked, and one in particular that's really mad about it and just is constantly orchestrating this like counter narrative through people who are like, oh, you don't understand him, and nope, he's a con man, block you. Like, no, sorry. I'm not going to allow you to like create this narrative on my comment section that it's like two equals arguing. No, you're a con man and I'm correct. Sorry. Like that's all there is to it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it does make the content a lot more interesting, I find, like when you have that back and forth, when you have that engagement. So, I thank you for trying to change some of those minds.
Gotta try.
But yeah, and the other thing is, have you ever considered sort of separating out your two different types of content into two different channels, like having one about the education, one about the debunking?
Yeah, a lot of people have suggested that, Professor Dave Debunks channel. And perhaps if I had known how prevalent, like how into that kind of content I would get, maybe I would have done that. But it's hard because, first of all, why separate it?
Don't start from scratch.
Yeah, I don't want to start from scratch, first of all, and then I have to get the algorithm favoring that channel. It's like, this channel is going well, so it should all go there. I mean, I would say that there is a slight downside to combining them because I do get very salty in the comment section of those videos, and I don't want people who come for the academic content to look at that and go like, oh, this guy, he's getting pretty sour here. So that would be cool if that aspect were two separate identities. But also, just, if I put out an anti-vaccine debunk, this has a lot of educational merit. I'm taking all the anti-vaccine talking points and explaining with crystal clarity why they're not legitimate talking points. And I would like for somebody to see, like, oh, he's got microbiology content. He's got immunology content. I have all these questions.
Credibility.
Yeah, that too, credibility, but also navigability. Somebody can say, like, why didn't he talk about all these anti-vaccine talking points in the microbiology content or the immunology content? Well, here they all are all nice and tidy in this one video, because that's what this video is for. Not so much with the academic stuff. I don't need to be addressing, when I do physics content, I don't need to go, oh, by the way, here's why the Earth isn't flat. Like, we all know it's not flat. It's not. It's overkill to talk about all these things when you're doing academic tutorials. But it's also fun and necessary to debunk all this stuff, and so that's why I've gotten roped into that and have found it to be quite satisfying.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I suppose looking back on it, if you had known when you made that first debunk video, like this was going to blow up, you probably would have separated it. But now that you're too far down, it's just too hard to separate.
Not even. I mean, at first I didn't even think about it and wouldn't have done it. Now I maybe would have done it, but probably still no. I still kind of want everything on one channel, but I see the merits of it more now that I'm like 20 debunks deep, and
too deep now, can't get back.
Exactly, yeah, too deep. I'm not going to delete all those and re-upload onto another channel. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, too much work. But Dave, this has been an awesome episode, super interesting. I love discovering the stories behind different channels, understanding more about their thought process, how they produce the content they do, the work that goes into it, because I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of work that goes into some of these YouTube channels. Yep. So thank you so much for coming on. Let us know where we can find out more information about you, maybe check you out. I know you've got a Patreon, you've got books, you've got your channel. So yeah, definitely let us know where we can find you. Check it, how we can see some of these debunk videos and read some of these comments.
Yeah, so it's just Professor Dave Explains on YouTube. The homepage is very well organized, so you can see all the subjects I cover, and then at the bottom there's a debunk playlist with all the debunks in there. The YouTube channel is the main thing. I do have a Patreon page for Professor Dave Explains as well, which is not too heavily patroned, but I do appreciate the patrons I do have. The book is everywhere. It's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever it is. Once again, it's Is This Wi-Fi Organic? A Guide to Spotting Misleading Science Online. And, I'm on the socials at Dave Explains for Twitter and Facebook. I'm a little too old. I'm like that Zennial that like is young enough to like.
Not on TikTok yet.
I did do TikTok because I was part of the TikTok Learning Fund. So TikTok actually hired me to make TikToks, but I completed the contract and then stopped doing it. Just I found it to be not a great platform.
Too hard?
Well, it's just it's just too silly and not just aesthetically not conducive to educational content. I just But anyway, I'm on there if you want to see my silly TikToks that I made for money, and I try to do the social media. I'm not very good at it, but you got to try a little bit. So I'm everywhere. I'm all around.
Well, I was going to say you've nailed the YouTube, so you don't really need the other social channels. Yeah,
that's the content. The rest is just like, hey, go look at my YouTube content, and like I don't know, I don't. Yeah. It doesn't work that well for me, so I don't try very hard.
Man, you got to stick to what you're good at. That's right. That's the only way to focus.
I'll hire a social media intern later. Who knows?
Phase 2, 2021 goal.
That's right.
All right, Dave, thank you so much for all your time, sharing everything, and I'll add all of the links into the show notes and everything so you guys can find them. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Blitz Growth and hearing some of the creator stories, and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks for having me.